with an average age of about 25, and they're all males, ages ranging from 19 to 36. And the measures we use with the resilience scale, a coping skills inventory, their own self-estimate of mental toughness. So we asked them, how mentally tough are you on a scale of 1 to 10? And finally, we also wanted an objective, well, relatively objective measure. So we asked the coaches to rate each player on this coach rating scale. Right, so here are some of our results. So looking at a between-group comparison now, the Pro League and the Eastern Division, we didn't find many differences, many significant differences, but because our sample is still small, we're hoping to get more data. But what we did find was the Pro League team had a slightly higher mental toughness scores, but it wasn't a significant difference. So the trend was that the team playing at the more competitive level was slightly higher, but not yet significantly so. Where they did score significantly higher and withstanding corrections for multiple comparisons was on this component of mental toughness. So this NTQ is the total score, and then if we look at all the subcomponents, challenge, commitment, control, and confidence. The Pro League scored significantly higher on the control life scores. So what's control life? It's the sense of control of yourself and what happens to you. And individuals scoring higher on this scale are more likely to believe that they control their lives. They feel that their plans will not be thwarted, but they can make a difference. Now, considering that the players in the Pro League are all professional footballers, they're all full-time footballers, whereas the Eastern Division team, they're part-time players. They also have their jobs, and this league is something they participate in after work, within work. So it could be that sense of these professional players. This is their career. It's not something they do as a hobby. And perhaps that might account for the reason that we see them scoring high on this component. There were also significant correlations with the athlete coping skills and inventory. So those with higher mental toughness use more coping skills, more active coping skills. It correlates with the resilience scale. So more resilient players are also more mentally tough, correlated with their own mental toughness. So players have a good idea of their own levels of mental toughness. With coach rating scales, so the players who got higher coach ratings were also the players who were more mentally tough. And finally, with years of education. So years of education, the more years of education you had, the more mentally tough you were. And I'll talk about that particular finding a little bit more soon. So we looked at the correlational analysis and also regression to see which were the significant predictors of, So the ones in green are the significant correlates, and the red circles are the significant predictors. And I'm not sure if you can read these, but these are just the R-squared, how much variability they're accounting for. So we can see here, so this is also one variable we looked at, the length of time they had been playing professional football. So this analysis here is only for the Pro League team. It was correlated with mental toughness. The longer you play, the more mentally tough you get. And again, with control over life and confidence in their abilities. Now, education was correlated with these significantly. Look at mental toughness self. So this is their self-estimates. And we found that the only significant predictor of control of emotions was their own rating. So what this suggests, and of course it's open to other interpretations, seems to be what players think of as mental toughness. So when you ask them how mentally tough you are, they seem to perceive that as to how in control of my emotions am I. So toughness is equated, and this might be related to concepts of masculinity as well, that being tough is being in control of your emotions. Why is that important? Because as we can see, there are other aspects of mental toughness. And if our players aren't conceiving of these as well, and seeing their role and their importance and how it redounds into benefits in their performance, then this highlights an area that sports psychologists and practitioners might want to focus on with their players. So again, coach ratings and resilience were the best predictors of mental toughness. But again here, the coach ratings, and then it's a feature of this particular scale. So this particular scale really did, the items on it really did speak more about commitment and challenge and less on these aspects. And finally, we can see that resilience is the best predicted. There's a high correlation there. So I remember the first time I heard about this mental toughness, I asked Peter Clough this question. Well, Peter, how is this different from resilience? Are you just dressing up resilience with a fancy term and calling it mental toughness? To some extent, yes. But what's unique about the concept of mental toughness is that we can now disaggregate it into these separate components. And if we identify where the deficits, where the strengths and the weaknesses are in the players, then you can tailor interventions to address these separate components. So, so for the players, this was the concept that they equated with mental toughness, that they're able to keep their anxieties in check and they're less likely to reveal their emotional states to other people. And when we speak about resilience, it's just defined as the ability to cope with, respond successfully to various life stresses and emerge stronger than before. So as I said, it's a similar concept to mental toughness. Right. So ending up, what is this study? What are the implications for this study? Well, we've seen that resilience, coach ratings, and self-estimates are the best predictors. And just to talk a little bit about this part, education is associated with challenge and commitment. So this is important for players who have fewer years of education. So if they have fewer years of education, the solution is not that we go and we send them to school. There's that option. But if we know there are other aspects that we could focus on, so maybe we need to target specifically when we have players who haven't received as much education, maybe we need to take that into consideration when we're interacting with them, because it might impact on their ability to conceive of this concept of mental toughness and how they can apply it to themselves. And I mentioned this before, it gives us an avenue to target specific areas. So the implications of the study, we're moving forward. So tough times ahead. We want to collect data from other teams and student athletes for comparisons. Other objective measures we want to use is we want to see if players' salaries correlate to mental toughness. I'm not sure if team managers will want to know the result of that one, but it would certainly be interesting. We'd also like to use other objective measures of performance. So for example, with cricket, we can use batting averages, bowling performance, etc., to see how that correlates. And we have some data with the English sample, and we are going to compare them to see if mental toughness in the Caribbean is conceived of in the same way as mental toughness in the UK and elsewhere. And finally, to identify the features that can discriminate between low and high, mentally tough and high mentally tough athletes. Is it education? Is it age? Is it socioeconomic status? How can we distinguish between them? So with that, I'd like to end, and I'd like to thank my collaborators, who's Dr. Yusuf, who's in the audience, and who's also giving a talk tomorrow morning. And so Dr. Peter Clough, who I worked with at Hull University, and who is collaborating with us and gave us access to the use of the MTQ measure. I'd also like to thank the football teams who gave up their time. It's not easy to get athletes after training to sit down and complete 100 items. And finally, the sport company for giving us access, for facilitating access to some of these teams. And finally, in your booklet, you see there's not my email, because I still am waiting on my UE credentials. But in the meantime, very open. Like to collaborate with anybody who's like-minded, who's interested in mental toughness. My area is neuropsychology, and I'm very interested in cognitive performance and also delineating these cognitive aspects of mental toughness and how we can improve that. So please email me with questions, comments, and I'll be happy to respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khatija Khan, on your very interesting research and presentation. The study's aims were threefold. One, to validate a mental toughness measure for use in Caribbean populations. Two, to assess mental toughness in athletes at varying levels of competition. And three, to compare mental toughness across cultures. The mental toughness questionnaire was the instrument used, and she used a pro league team and one from the Eastern Division for her study. The study is ongoing, but preliminary results indicate that the mental toughness questionnaire is easily administered and appropriate for use in the Caribbean. Early trends indicate mental toughness is correlated with competition level and coach ratings. The applicability of the mental toughness questionnaire and the potential for the mental toughness training to improve performance was discussed. All right? Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you have your opportunity for questions. We just have 5 minutes of questioning, so we're going to do it as efficiently as possible. We're going to field a few questions and then have the answers, okay? So, yes, we have a hand up already. Good, thanks for the mic there.
First of all, sorry.
Tamasha Robinson, Sports Psychology Officer with the Sports Company of Trinidad and Tobago. As I said, thank you very much for your presentations. First question to Mr. Troy Morgan, or Dr. Troy Morgan. You mentioned in your solutions at the end, transforming sport, right, was one of your solutions in your list of solutions. So I just it's more like kind of a comment and question. I was wondering if you don't view that as an entirely different task in itself, a major task. Would you say that it's, because as it would appear to envelop so many challenges and parts to it, and it's not as simple as it may seem within your list of solutions. So that's my first question. And the second to Dr. Khatija Khan. Well, you kind of mentioned some at the end because I kind of had my question before, but I wanted to know why male athletes? And is it because, would you say there, because of a level of machismo or macho qualities that they have as Trinbagonian men? And would you say that narcissism plays a key role in the strengths and levels of mental toughness, which at the end you kind of mentioned that you wanted to look at different variables that would attribute to the levels of mental toughness. So those are my two questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's field one more question on psychology before we answer. Is there another question on psychology? Any of the psychology presentations? Okay, answer time.
Thank you. Yes, you're 100% right. Transforming sport is by far way more than takes way more than just two words, what I had on there of transforming sport. What I mean by that, specifically in the United States, is right now what we've pretty much been witness to is a sociology of elite sport. And so what I mean by transforming sport is a sociology of a sport for all. In the United States, we're very much concerned with professional sports and NCAA at the highest level, NCAA D1 schools and sports, particularly football and basketball. Not even baseball as much, but really football and basketball. And so what I mean by transforming sport is how we look at studying sport. We need to, I believe, and I think a lot of people in the same area believe, we need to put much more focus on studying sport at the youth level and being much more inclusive as opposed to exclusive. Looking at how sport, as we heard yesterday, I believe, sport for development a lot of times is looked at on an individual basis, whereas sport for development, I believe, in a sociological point of view, needs to be looking at how to develop communities, societies, neighborhoods, if you will. So that's kind of what I mean by transforming sport and how we look at sport through a sociological perspective. Hope that answers.
Okay.
Your first question on why male athletes, if it's pertaining to this study, because this is our first study, we needed to focus on a team, and because most of the teams are separated by the genders, it was just for ease of convenience. We would love to work with some of the female sports teams, and that's our intention to move on, and also to do a range of ages. You also asked about narcissism and mental toughness. One of the things I didn't get to touch on is that mental toughness may contribute more to performance differently across the sports. So it depends on the sport. So for example, if it's a team sport as opposed to an individual sport. So if you're, I remember when Atta Bolden first came on the scene and HSI, handling speed intelligently, and everybody complained about how they were so brash and bold and egocentric, but maybe that was the key to their success. That might not work so much in a team sport where you need to focus on the needs of the team. Just an anecdote, I remember my time at Mona, and we had a big problem when we had the UE Games, because among the Mona team, the guys from Chancellor Hall did not want to pass to the guys on Taylor because they didn't trust them. They only wanted to pass to their guys, which makes no sense for a team sport. So narcissism might confer an advantage or be adaptive in some instances, but not others. I'm not sure if Professor Otley has something to add to that.
I think you hit it right on point. It's sometimes you could also relate it to the self-determination theory, which is it's going to, you must look at the level of skillfulness and their perception of how skillful they are, and can they do what they say they're able to do. And also their autonomy, how much they take charge